Hoosh, did you watch Monday Night Football last night?
I did watch it.
Okay, you played in the National Football League. You were a Pro Bowler. You know how this thing works. How alarmed should Niner fans be, or maybe like football fans be, over Jimmy Garoppolo's statistically and aesthetically poor performance?
It's concerning, but I wouldn't say alarmed. You can't put too much in the preseason. Nobody really game plans. And you got to take into account the Denver Broncos arguably have one of the top 2 or 3 defensive lines in the league. And so he was under pressure from the get-go. And so with him being out as long as he has, it doesn't look good when he throws 5 interceptions on 5 consecutive passes in practice, and you come out here and pretty much almost throw 2, 1 pick six. I wouldn't say alarmed, but I'm concerned.
How much of the throws are his fault? How much of the throws are everybody else's fault?
Well, none of them looked like it, and I don't know exact routes, but they didn't look like receivers slipped. They didn't look like receivers were running bad routes. The majority of the throws, he was under pressure. He was about to get hit, and he was just getting rid of the ball. And so a lot of that could be the line not blocking. The timing isn't correct. I don't know how much he's practiced. You would think if they said the rehab has gone very smoothly that he's good to go in practice, so he's taking all the reps. So, but I'm concerned for sure.
Okay, here's my. You have kids. I have kids. When you ask people who don't have children, or before you're about to have children, what age do they always say is the most difficult to raise kids?
Man.
Well, they always say teenage years, but like early years.
Man, it's between the terrible twos, 2 to 4. And then they probably get good for about a year and a half, and then they think they can do what they want to do. I'm going through that right now.
Okay, so I mentioned that because it's called the terrible twos. It does just kind of slide off the tongue.
Yes.
And the interesting part about the terrible twos is that I actually think, and I have 3 kids that have gone past the terrible twos, that 3 is worse. And here's why. When terrible twos, you're told they're going to be terrible. They're going to throw tantrums. You're going to be like, it's the terrible twos. You're just kind of ready for it, right?
You expect it.
You're expecting it. You're preparing for it. They're still, many times they're still sleeping in cribs. They still have diapers, right? They're not going to preschool yet. They're 2 years old. So when they throw a fit, when they lay down on the pavement and refuse to move, when you're out at like a family picnic, or you're trying to go to a store, or trying to go to a restaurant, you're like, he's 2. A year later, when they're 3, a lot of times now they're in big boy panties, big girl panties, big boy underwear, big girl panties. They're sleeping in their own bed. And sometimes they go to preschool. And you give them a little bit more freedom because they're 3. And it's actually worse. It's actually harder because they're still just 3 years old. They still run into stuff. They still, they'll have an accident, or they still they're not comfortable in their bed. They're not comfortable in their school. Like 3 can be in many ways more trying because you weren't necessarily, you thought, I'm done with 2. We're good. I think the same for quarterbacks. Rookie quarterbacks. We make excuses. Like Baker Mayfield had some good games last year. He had some bad games. Like he actually wasn't, he was 10 touchdowns, 11 interceptions against the good defenses they played against. Right? He wasn't, and what do we do with rookie quarterbacks? Just run the play. Just run the play and see half the field. We don't give you the whole playbook. We don't give you the whole field. And if you make a mistake, we go, he's a rookie. Jimmy Garappolo has started a grand total of 10 games in the National Football League. Now, I'm with you. I'm sitting there. I thought he was Jimmy Jesus 2 seasons ago. He comes in, starts lighting the world on fire. And then I look and I'm like, well, he hadn't really played. 1, he hadn't played since he got hurt. 2, he's placing a good defense. And 3, he's basically like a second-year starter, considering his lack of actual game reps. So maybe this sounds like excuses. Maybe it's part explanation. But I kind of think he's like the 3-year-old that you would have thought he'd gotten rid of all of this stuff. But the truth is, he just hadn't seen it enough. He hadn't played enough to understand the adjustments that he has to make.
Jimmy, well, he's seen adjustments.
The analogy was good. Just go, hey, the analogy was really good.
The analogy was really good, but by the way,
it doesn't fit with Garoppolo.
My son, my kids, they not laying down on the ground. They know better than that, but that's another story. But but they will throw some temper tantrums. He's seen everything in practice. He's seen every defense, but the tempo and the pace and the adrenaline that your defense comes out with in practice and other teams come out with a game is completely different. when a T is coming in practice, the offensive line, they're ready for it. Offensive line coaches tell them, make sure you set deep, pass it off. But in the game, when you have Von Miller coming at you, you're like, okay, I got to block Von Miller. Oh, it's a T, and he kind of slips through there. And so you go over everything in practice, but when you see it live action in the game, it's completely different. And it's what you said. He hasn't started many games, but when you get the type of contract that he has received,
right, greater
expectations are so high that you have to live up to those. And is it unfair? Yeah, it's unfair. But when you sign that contract, there's a lot of quarterbacks that have done more that says, oh, man, that's unfair. It is what it is. It's the preseason. Now, the 49ers are one of the teams was one of the surprise teams for me just because of him coming back in, Kyle Shanahan. Now, you start the season and you play like even the next game. They'll game plan pretty decent for the third game. You do that again, it's going to be they're going to be thinking about putting Nick Mullins in there or something.
This is Jimmy Garappolo after his poor performance.
No, I think those guys did a pretty good job up front. For the most part, it was a clean pocket. I think I only got hit like once maybe. So, for the most part, it was pretty good up front. I just personally have to be better.
So, he had 2 balls batted down. He's saying clean pocket. You didn't see clean pocket. Let's hear what Kyle Shanahan had to say about what he saw.
For a quarterback, more than anything, your rhythm's off. You need to be in there a lot of snaps where you can feel the rush. You have the timing of the speed of the game with the coverages, with the receivers and stuff just throwing. And you can simulate that only in practices, but you're still never going to allow anyone to hit you. So it's just getting back there and getting comfortable. Some guys don't come back from it as well. Jimmy's been great. He came back. He's had no setbacks, and he's good to go. But Jimmy hasn't played a lot of football, and then he missed last year. So it's about getting him reps, putting him in different situations, and letting him play as much as possible.
So it's a little bit of what both of us said. You're talking about rhythm and feel and timing and speed of the game. And then I was talking about the fact he hadn't played a lot of football, right? I mean, that's just, look at the numbers and you're like, wait, he's been in the league how long?
Maybe you and I, maybe we should go into the same coaching staff. Man. We hammered that. We nailed it, right?
I think we see, we understand, and then there's coming off the knee. And even if you're not physically, you're fine. And even mentally, you're like, everybody says they're fine. Then all of a sudden you got these dogs coming after you.
It's a different game, man. When they coming at you, and he did what any quarterback is going to do. Oh, I wasn't under pressure. I had a clean. You're not going to throw your teammates under the bus. But anybody that understands football knows he was under pressure. He didn't have a clean pot. He had guys coming in his face, so it's like, let me get rid of this ball.
His first play, he got it knocked down. Like honestly, like first play, and then the pick.
If he doesn't throw that ball, he's taking a sack, maybe a sack fumble, and so. But he'll know. Just take the sack. Okay, that series might be down the drain. I'm just going to take that sack.
What was Joe Staley doing on that whiff of a block? Doug Gottlieb, TJ Houshmandzadeh in for Dan and the Danettes. I also think there's somebody else to blame. Adrian Peterson. Everyone assumes that because Adrian Peterson came back and was the MVP of the league after tearing his ACL, that every other athlete's going to come back from a torn ACL and you'll be fine. Now, he's not at a position of supreme athleticism like running back, but the fact is, it does usually take you almost a year of coming back in terms of playing and feeling and being right. So, I think there's a little bit of Adrian Peterson there. Adrian Peterson is an outlier. He's a complete outlier. Carson Wentz wasn't great last year. Carson Wentz was the MVP of the league, wasn't great last year. And people are like, well, maybe they should have held on to Nick Foles. No, it was his first year off of an ACL. That's how dudes look.
When you're a quarterback, and you're not a running quarterback, I wouldn't put too much into the ACL thing. More not from an athletic standpoint.
I'm talking about a mentality.
Oh yeah, 100%. You practice and you feel the rush in practice, but then you get in the game and you have to make real quick, sudden movements. You're apprehensive. You're a little nervous. You're unsure. I'm sure yesterday he walked away from that, was like, didn't even think about the knee afterwards. But going into the game, I'm sure this is first game. He was nervous about that knee. That's human nature.
Hi, I'm Doug Gottlieb from Fox Sports Radio, and you need to subscribe to the Fox Sports Radio YouTube channel where you can hear and see me. Why not? Plus, everybody else who's awesome here in Fox Sports Radio.